It's the Age Has No Limit podcast. We're here to show and prove that your age shouldn't prevent you from designing and living the life you want. I'm your host, Patrice Davis. Let's get started. I'm super excited for my conversation with Natalia Hooker for a number of reasons that we'll dive into later. So Natalia has 20 years of experience in the publishing industry and an innate ability to nurture new talent. Natalia is a writing coach, an author consultant, and her company provides editing services, which is fantastic. On top of that, she can help you navigate both the traditional and self-publishing routes to getting your book published. She has a passion for nonfiction as well as children's books. And when she works with authors, she brings balance to both the creative and business needs that are required for success as an author. Natalia has seen much of the world. She grew up in Sydney, Australia, and was a banker in New York. She's also lived in Warsaw, Poland, in London, in Paris, New York, as mentioned, and of course, Milan. She also learned to speak the languages in many, if not all, of the countries where she's lived. An amazing talent, by the way, Natalia. Can't wait to hear more about that. But she now calls Barcelona home, one of my favorite cities, and is the author of 15 books. Through her company, Alaya Books, she helps budding authors bring their books to life. Natalia, welcome to the Age Has No Limit podcast.
Thank you, Patrice. It's so wonderful to be with you here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, Natalia, as I shared at the start of your intro, I'm eager to know more about your travels, about your work in the publishing industry, and of course, as a banker in New York. But we want to start with your childhood in Sydney, Australia. Tell us what that was like.
So growing up in Sydney was magnificent. I feel it couldn't have been better. But I felt as I hit the teenage years, I was always dancing and studying and doing musicals, and I don't know, I just felt like I always was just doing a million things. But as I was becoming a teenager, I just felt I needed something else. And my mother's Polish. And I started writing in my diary. I've always kept a diary. Things like my goals were to have an EU passport. I wanted to speak all of these different languages. I started listing countries in the world that I wanted to see. So I think it was just something I had in me. And it wasn't until I was living in New York, which was later down the track, but then I was like, where do I miss? I knew that New York wasn't home forever. And I realized I missed Europe, continental Europe, not Eastern Europe, like as far as Warsaw, but more like Italy, France, all of these countries were kind of calling me. And Australia wasn't. And I actually, when I left home after university, well, home being Australia, and I haven't been back. Well, back to live. The longest I've stayed is like 5 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think that was just my calling to live abroad.
So immediately I'm thinking about you as a teenager, basically creating, designing your life almost by being in tune enough with who you are that you know what you want to do, where you want to live. And that's pretty cool as a teenager.
So random.
It is.
It wasn't until later when I started reading loads of self-help books that I realized what I was doing. Really, all those years abroad too, I was setting myself goals. Like I had financial goals sometimes I had language goals, sometimes I had travel goals, but I kept on doing these lists in my diaries, and I thought I was keeping diaries because I knew one day I was an aspiring author. But then I realized I was actually just helping myself along.
Yeah, you were. And the fact that you were also an aspiring author and ended up becoming an author. So again, it's just making, being clear about what you want. And eventually it sounds like everything was coming together over time. So fantastic, fantastic way to start off, especially for those of you who need a reminder that sometimes it's that clarity of what we want that can help us get to that point. So what would you say? I'm sorry, you were saying?
There's a lot of patience involved because it seemed like every country I wanted to discover or every language I wanted to learn, everything, or every new career I started, everything just takes a lot longer. So we have to give ourselves, once we're there, just remember this is what we wanted, and give ourselves the time to grow into it a bit.
Yes,
Otherwise, we
yes.
just end up chopping around all the time, and that's not good. I think once you're like, this is what I wanted, just stick with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That so
Mm.
in other words, it's almost like have faith in the outcome, kind of go with the flow, and give yourself grace. I mean, those all three
Yes.
sound like, really kitschy, things to say, but it's really, really true. And it's great for those of us who like to push things forward. I'm one of those that sometimes you just have to give it time, give it space, and not everything is going to materialize when you want it to materialize. And so, yeah, thank you for that or that reminder. So, what would you say is your favorite childhood? You said you had a wonderful childhood in Sydney. What's
Yeah.
your favorite childhood memory?
Well, we had this beautiful house and we lived on the harbour. I mean, we were so privileged. I just remember this incredible bright blue swimming pool,
Mm-hmm.
and we had very long summers in
Mm-hmm.
Sydney. I live in
Oh.
Spain and everybody think, oh, you have long summers there, but because I'm in the northern part of
Mm-hmm.
Spain,
Mm-hmm.
um, the summers seem a bit shorter, but in
Yeah.
Australia, we could really swim 8 months of the year.
Wow. Wow.
And yeah, so that's kind of when I think of home, I just picture our swimming pool, and there was a palm tree next to it. And our
Mm-hmm.
house, ironically, it,
Mm-hmm.
it had a Spanish design to it.
Ah, interesting.
So
Wow.
maybe, that's why I feel so at home here.
Yeah, yeah, kind of drawn to that. And so as you mentioned, you've lived in Warsaw, and then you also mentioned that your mom is Polish, and that kind of
Yes.
immediately helped me understand why you live there. And then
Mhm.
of course you lived in London, New York, and Milan, and you were a banker
Yes.
in New York. So what did you do in the banking industry?
So I worked for a specialized investment bank, and it was
Mm-hmm.
real estate.
Mm-hmm.
But I did all kinds of things for the company. I actually, because I was doing my master's in
Mm-hmm.
law at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, I
Mm-hmm.
started off as executive director, helping CEO with his
Mm-hmm.
foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was incredible. And then I was on the acquisition side. So that was pure, pure, pure business, and that was really exciting, doing loads of deals. And
Mm-hmm.
it was funny because that helped me later when
Mm-hmm.
I was actually in publishing, because I ended up on the deals side doing
Oh.
sales, and it was parts of it sort of reflected back, and all the
Mm-hmm.
Excel spreadsheets and things like that. And I thought, everything we learn along the way, it all
They're all
fits into
connected.
place, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm glad we're starting out the episode with so many examples of how things all the puzzle pieces fit for you. And interestingly, some of the puzzle pieces, I think you're finding them later on in life that, I actually initiated, or I'm responsible for things ending up the way they are because I actually created a list when I was a teenager. Or I'm able to use these skills I learned in acquisitions for negotiating on the publishing side. So it's a wonderful reminder to all of us to, as we said earlier, to there are sometimes little miracles happening in our lives, and we just have to, again, sometimes go with the flow and allow them to happen. What I also like about you and your background is that you had a girl band at
Yes.
31. She had
Yes.
a girl band at 31. So what kind of music?
Yes, and this is
Um,
really where the age has no limit bit
yeah,
starts.
yeah.
I
I
feel
really, really
always
want to
along
know
the
about
way,
that.
though, I
I'm
was
sorry.
thinking, because at 30, I really got into French, and I was like, well,
Mhm,
aren't I a bit old to learn a language? And then, of
mhm,
course, since then, I've learned lots of languages, and,
mhm, mhm,
but yeah, the girl band thing was just a bit crazy, because when I was working in New
mhm,
York,
mhm,
I just felt really starved of creativity.
mhm,
And I threw myself into my work. I always throw myself 100% into whatever job I have at the time.
mhm,
And it was real banking. I was there in a pinstripe, navy
mhm,
blue suit,
mhm,
hose, heels,
mhm,
doing all these like super conservative deals and board meetings and all of
mhm,
this stuff. And then I was just like, I just want to do something creative. I need a creative career. And it was just before I turned 30, I decided to take the plunge. And this is an interesting topic that I like to think about. It's kind of like how our life does go in decades. And I think 30 was a trigger for me. And so I went to France. I'd always wanted to speak French fluently. So that was my stepping stone. And then I had this incredible weekend in Milan with a friend. And I was just like, I'm going to move to Milan. And I'd never thought of living in Italy before, but I just had such a good time. Rome, I tried to, and I knew it must be such an incredible city with all of the history. But for some reason, Milan just really drew me in. And when I got there, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just thought I was going to work in fashion, and then the salaries were horribly low. And after being in New York, it just wasn't something I could consider. And then I just thought, well, I have savings, you know, and I met these girls and they completely inspired me. One had Somalian background and the other one was just this beautiful sort of southern looking Italian. I was like, and we were singing together, just doing crazy things. I was like, let's start a girl band. And that's what we did. And I, with my business background, I just felt confident. I'd always been in the musicals and all of that stuff. I've did dance forever when I was younger. So I was just like, we just have to sing and dance and use backing tracks. Let's just do it. And I somehow convinced them. And the band members came and went. Actually, next weekend, one of the beautiful, we ended up having this gorgeous girl from China. She's visiting me here next weekend. We're still fantastic friends. And it was just like an experience of friendship, performance. I don't know. There were a lot of life lessons in that. I have actually written a book about it that it will be published early next year. So I'm excited to release that because I feel for anybody that's in a career and they don't feel it's quite right, hopefully this will be an inspiration. Just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I have three quick follow-up questions. I think the first one is quick, but the other two, I want to sit there a little bit. So the first one is, how long was the girl band? You know, how long were you guys going to, you know, working clubs? How was
it was a lot of nightlife, which I think took its toll on me in the end. And also music industry was fickle, but I was in Italy as well. And there it's very different culturally because they kind of, you know, where even in Milan, it was so Northern Italian, very business, but people would say, I'll meet you at 3:00. And then they're like, they don't turn up or everything's delayed. It was quite difficult, but it was amazing. Like we had TV spots, we had club spots. We did perform in France and in England. We did some shows abroad as well. And it was, we went down on Sicily for a summer tour. That was really good. But from start to finish, it was 2 years with the girl band because I just, Barcelona was already calling me. I wanted to take it to Barcelona, but then I was like, no, I think it should be a refresh, new city, new adventure.
So what was the name of the girl band?
BBB. So
BBB.
it was blonde, black, and browns because we really played on the multicultural side. And we actually have a beautiful article written. I've translated it from the Italian. We're on the front of the Corriere della Sera newspaper, and they were just saying how Milan has really turned into a melting pot because traditionally it was quite a very traditional Italian city, and then you know so many foreigners coming in for the fashion and everything. So yeah, we played on that, and I think it was a good place to be doing it. I always knew I wasn't going to be doing it in London or New York because we weren't like professional superstars, but because we're in that place, I think we got a lot of just a lot of followers, really. I mean, if it was the time, it was the TikTok and Instagram and all that, because it was all before that. This was not happening a while ago. I mean, everybody was there with their phones recording us the whole time, we would have been like viral.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the timing, you're absolutely right. I think though, I really think that, it was the right time, and the right, like you said, the right city. And as you said, sort of a multicultural turnover that was happening in Milan, as you described it. Um, but yeah, I mean, you never know how things could have unfolded had it been in, the social media age. But I think a lot of people would have been open to that. So it's interesting because as I'm listening to you speak, I'm hearing you go from you're Australian, and then I hear you maybe, more of more of a British. And I'm sure that's because you've lived in so many different places.
Yes.
But how many languages do you speak?
Well, I speak the language where I live
Mm-hmm.
always well
Mm-hmm.
enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a linguist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do find it gets rusty. I
Yeah.
was just in France and, I was
Mm-hmm.
getting by. It was okay. But still, I was like, oh my God, I spoke it so well. But
Yeah.
it was 20 years ago now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Italian, I just actually yesterday, I was at the
Mm-hmm.
park with my daughter and there was an Italian family there. So I managed to communicate with them because they didn't speak Spanish or English.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's just all about getting by, and my
Yeah.
Polish the same. It's not like when I was living there, like obviously in Italy, I was doing girl band deals. I was
Mm-hmm.
doing everything that we needed to do in Italian.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I got it to a really good stage. And my
Mm-hmm.
French, because I had a great base from school, I did a very high level at high school.
Mm-hmm.
That came really quickly. The
Mm-hmm.
Polish I listened to my whole life, so
Mm-hmm.
I picked it up relatively quickly. But again, I don't listen to Polish
Yeah.
regularly now, so
Yeah.
it disappears.
Yeah.
So here I speak Spanish. I understand Catalan, but I
Mm-hmm.
must say I've got this sort of burning desire to learn Brazilian Portuguese.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm on 6 languages. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. Fantastic. That's interesting. And I could actually spend a
Not
little
perfect.
bit, huh? Which one?
Not perfect. I'm just
Oh,
saying, like, I'm not.
yeah. Well, I mean, even if you're not fluent, you learn enough to be able to navigate that space, navigate the country. And Polish, Italian, French, and those are all of the three, they seem like very different, very, very different languages. It's not like it's Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, where there's like that Latin base. I don't know the base for Polish. But just thinking that those seem like very different languages to learn. And again, you don't need to be fluent, but the fact that you've been able to learn it enough to be able to navigate those countries, I think is still very impressive. So
Yeah.
let's definitely still pat your back on yourself on
Oh,
the back
thank
for that.
you. And it is a wonderful way to learn the culture and
Yes.
really experience the country, not through foreigners' eyes, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So one of
So,
the things that really resonated from some of the things that you just said as well was the idea that you needed some kind of creative outlet. And I
yes.
completely understand that. I was as we were saying before we started recording, that one of the reasons I started the podcast was because of my work as the owner of a federal grant consulting firm, right? So that's federal grants, that's regulations, that's some of the things that really there isn't any space for creativity. And so I thought, let me start a podcast. And then I had a wonderful conversation with someone who said, well, there's this whole population, this demographic that is sometimes overlooked. You're entering into that space or you're already in that space. Do something for people like Natalia and others who are doing amazing things with their lives and they're not living the stereotypical, life that one thinks they should have, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. They're doing amazing things. Natalia will be probably learning Brazilian Portuguese soon, guys. So, so, so at what point, though, did you actually enter the publishing industry?
Yeah, so when I moved to Barcelona,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I really decided I really want to write. I
Mm-hmm.
had the girl band experience. In itself, the whole girl band experience was a sort of um, road to refinding my creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Just even evenings in my lounge room just dancing and putting on the music and just thinking, oh my God, I miss this so much. And then I suppose I sort of found myself again. And then I thought writing will be a good blend because you've got the sort of technical side of it, I suppose, because you've got research or, the whole setting up of the book process, but then you've got the creativity as well. And I must say it's been completely fulfilling and I've never looked back. So that was 2005 when I moved to Barcelona and I decided that writing was going to be my thing. So I just started writing and drafting some of my own books, and then I got a job in publishing. And so I was just organizing big deals, foreign rights, for publishers in Australia and America that wanted their books in different languages. So I was the intermediary between publishers. And I did that for over 15 years.
Wow, wow, wow. So that in and of itself sounds like a perfect utilization of your talents, your skills, right? So you were negotiating deals, which, of course, you started that in banking, again, languages, and of course, your new career in publishing. So you seem to find, not just occupations, but, as you said, creative outlets that are really good use of your natural talents or the skills that you have. So you don't seem to sort of land in jobs that just, just for the sake of, hey, I need some money, right? They always
No, and I
they
don't
seem to be.
think, our lives should be that. Because the closest thing I did to that was the New York banking. But that's a time in my life where my objective was to get money saved. That fulfilled my objective.
Wow.
And get work experience, obviously. My CV was very important to me at that time, in my 20s.
Yeah.
But when I was in my 30s, my CV wasn't as important. It was more just satisfying this creative need. And I thought, how incredible. I'm going to get paid to go to all the book fairs. So I went to Frankfurt every year. I went to Bologna every year. And I just get to be surrounded by books. And have my meetings. It was a lot of meetings, very intense. And then obviously all the follow-up and all the deals to close and everything. But it was all beautiful books. And the people I was representing, they would send me boxes of books. And I was always keeping them, thinking, when I have a child, this is going to be really nice to have them for. And again, this is something that went on for years because I did not have a child till, talking about age is no limit, until very, very late. So there I was keeping these books for this elusive child that I never knew whether she or he would arrive or not.
Yeah. But I think sounds like you had an idea again that this would happen. And thankfully that has come to fore. Tell us about your daughter.
Yeah, so it was sort of a very long project. And finally she came into my life when I was 47.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Super, super, super late. I was looking at, I had some friends who were 45. So I was looking at them thinking, I don't want to wait that long. But then work, life. And I couldn't have left it a moment later. But every day I just look at her with so much gratitude.
Absolutely. She came. So for those of you who are listening and you'd like to work with Natalia or learn more about her, you can visit her website, alayabooks.com. So that's ALAYA books.com. Don't forget that she helps authors create the books of their dreams. So definitely go to her website. You can also follow her on Instagram at Alaya Books, ALAYA Books. So one of the things that she has as, let's say, the mantra or I can't think of I don't think the term is mantra, is that the world needs your story. And so interestingly, I actually started writing my book. I actually prepared a really detailed book proposal. I was at an author retreat. The book proposal is about 80% done. And in the next month or so, I'm really going to start working on finalizing the book proposal, shopping it around, and then actually, of course, continue to start, continue the writing. So that's another reason why I'm really, really excited to speak to Natalia. Now, you wrote that the publishing world right now is a minefield. Tell us a few of the reasons why the publishing world is a minefield, especially focusing on those that a new author needs to be aware of.
I just think, well, there's so much information on social media. You
Mm-hmm.
can Google something, one person will say one thing, one will take the other.
Mm-hmm.
I had so many years in publishing and still
Mm-hmm.
sometimes trying to navigate all of the options. And the publishing industry is just changing so much. So, um, over 8 years, say, we've basically become a self-publishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
Traditional publishing is not what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that everybody's adjusting to.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose it's just, get some good advice, trust somebody that you can trust,
Mm-hmm.
and then try not to get too confused with all the options, because you
Mm-hmm.
see people on Facebook groups for writers or different things, and I hear stories of some people just giving up because they're just kind of like, oh, it just seems all too much. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not. And I actually think the opportunities are incredible,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
before, like when I published my first book
Mm-hmm.
in 2011, it wasn't an option but to print in China,
Mm-hmm.
store the books,
Mm-hmm.
sell them
Actual
through
books.
pardon? Yeah.
Actual books too. Yeah. Actual.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just,
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, the expenses, the
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
now it's just like, I just suggest to everybody, particularly if they're just starting out, just put it up
Mm-hmm.
on Amazon
Mm-hmm.
or Ingram Spark, one of the platforms.
Mm-hmm.
It's so wonderful having print on demand.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wants to buy the book, they can have the book 2 days later, but it's not pre-printed, it's
Mm-hmm.
printed on order. It's just
Wow.
incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And the prices aren't crazy high, considering that they could just be printing one copy.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that wasn't available years
Mm-hmm.
ago. And I think it's an incredible opportunity for any author. If somebody has the time and the patience to put the book together,
Mm-hmm.
let's do it, because there's nothing holding you back.
Yeah.
Before there were all of these obstacles, financial, space. I mean, it was a lot of time that you would have to do,
Mm-hmm.
and now Amazon, they send it to anybody for you. Somebody
Yeah.
just has to click a button, and before you would have to warehouse them, and then through the warehouse you would have to arrange the orders or use your garage and then send
Mm-hmm.
them out yourself. I tell you, that's one thing I do not want to be doing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sending out physical books myself. That would really turn me off, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I've got my books. I've had them on Ingram Spark, and
Mm-hmm.
now I use Amazon a lot just because everybody's
Yeah.
on Amazon,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it is good.
The
Mm.
marketplace is there, that's, it's a ready-made marketplace. Now, so you mentioned that one of the reasons why it's a minefield is because it sounds like you're saying there's a lot of conflicting information, and the information can make someone, feel overwhelmed. And so tell us why you think that an aspiring author should trust you. You have years of experience, clearly, based on everything you've described. You
Mm.
definitely have the experience, but why should they trust you?
Mm. Well, I know a lot of people have aspiration for traditional publishing, and I always say go for it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really, really hard because first of all, you have to find the agent, and then the
Mm-hmm.
agent has to find the publisher. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, it's probably a 2-year process. And
Yeah.
then finally, the book will be edited and this and that. And then I don't know. Whereas the self-publishing message, it's so immediate.
Mm-hmm.
And I meet clients. I had this wonderful man come to me. He had 20 books written, and I
Mm,
just saw so much talent in
yeah.
his books.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave him a proposal. I worked out what his budget would be. I actually reduced my usual prices a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought to give his books a fair go, it would be good if he would do 3 of them, because to just do one out of 20, it seemed such a
Mm-hmm.
pity. And this way he made them into a series. So I selected 3 titles that I would be happy to work with him on. And you know what? 2 months later, and this the illustrator was crazy fast, but crazy good. We worked with a brilliant artist from Romania. 2 months later, he had his books published.
Wow.
And actually, this is a man that had been sitting on his books for decades.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it just depends how much somebody wants something. And I would love, love to have conversation with people that are passionate about it. I'm happy always to have a free call just to go over things. If we don't end up working together, that's fine too. But I'm just very passionate about what I do, and I love helping people.
Yeah, yeah. And you can tell, I mean, you can definitely tell. So one of the things you mentioned is that you're also an author, and you've actually written about L.J. Hooker, who I'd never heard about before.
Okay. Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, and for those of us, because I also don't know who L.J. Hooker is, what was it about his story that made you decide to write about him?
Yes. Well, it's such an inspirational story. We had a white Australia policy in Australia. Until I really delved deep into the research of the book, I didn't realize it was until 1976. So it was basically the whole lifetime of this man, L.J. Hooker. And he had Chinese background. And he was born with a Chinese name, illegitimate. His mother died when he was 8. He grew up in a Chinese-speaking household in Australia. So, and he didn't finish his education further than 14 years old.
Wow.
So he basically had everything going against him for success, but he had this burning ambition. And he said, I will have the biggest real estate company in Australia. And throughout the book, because I did the book with a lot of graphics, and there's lots of big quotes, and a lot of the quotes are his words, taken from newspaper articles or from interviews. This is what, L.J. Hooker always said, these kinds of things. And he's just such an inspiration. Because not only did he have the biggest real estate company, he was the largest landowner in the Southern Hemisphere. All of this happened when he was over 50. And I love that as well. So he'd had this burning ambition since he was like 20. He changed his name at 21 from Ting Yu, his Chinese name, to Hooker, because he didn't want anybody to know his Chinese heritage, because that would have prevented his success. And he was just hacking away.
Yeah.
Never lost that vision though. World War II broke out, things that he went through the Great Depression just after he set up his first company. And all of these things happened in his life. And then in the 50s, it was a time of growth in Australia. And he was just in the right place at the right time, and everything just fell into place. And the company still exists. They have, I believe, 600 franchises throughout Australia and New Zealand. And so it's really a household name in Australia. I never published it outside of Australia, just because I know that nobody knows who he is abroad. But I recently put a copy on Amazon, just the ebook. So if anybody is interested to have a look, it's not, I didn't put it at a very high price, probably $5 or something. You can pick it up because it's only 40,000 words, which is sort of like half a standard novel. So it's actually a very quick read, but all the graphics are amazing. And it is a very motivational story. It's like, gosh, if he can do it, we just have to have a mindset.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he said he made a decision. He made a decision that he was going to have the largest, I think he said, real estate company in Australia, and he made it happen. What's the name of the company?
L.J. Hooker.
L.J. Hooker. I love it. I love it.
That's easy. Yeah. He just had his name on the door, and he didn't waver from that either. He was very single focused, but as I said, it took 30 years of toil and hard work and everything to get where he wanted to be. But by the time he was knighted by the Queen of England, so he died a Sir. And he left an incredible legacy.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, you've also written Messages from Angels, The Notebook, and then Mommy Needs a Minute, From Burnout to Empowerment.
No, that was one of my clients.
That's
So
one of your clients that wrote that?
yes, that's not
That that book needs to be everywhere. Yeah, that's such when
right,
it just
right.
resonated with me so much. Because I'm a mom of three. My
Wow.
children are all adults now, young adults. And just that mommy needs a minute, that those four words,
So
I'm sure
true.
a lot of moms can can completely
Yes.
relate to that.
Yeah.
And so this client, tell me about the client and what made her decide to write that book.
So Elisa just contacted me through social media. She lives in
Mm-hmm.
the USA in
Mm-hmm.
state is it? Where Seattle is, but she's not in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
She's in
Washington,
the
state of
Washington
Washington.
state.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And she's in really in the middle of nowhere. She doesn't even
Mm-hmm.
say the name. She's just like, it's in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
nowhere. And
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a mom, struggling
Mm-hmm.
with the business, trying to do everything and the housework, it's like I am so mommy needs a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, she just attracted me from the beginning, and I just said, "Oh, I would love to help you in any way." And we still
Yeah.
email almost on a daily basis, and I'm keeping
Mm-hmm.
up to date. She's got some novels coming out. She's just so
Mm.
such a pleasure to work with, and because she's a professional researcher,
Ah,
she did a
okay.
brilliant job. But she's won an award for that book.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, it was just such a pleasure. So what I did for her, she came to me when the book was already prepared and edited. So it was more like,
Mhm.
just how do I make this marketable? She had a
Yeah.
cover that was sort of in a mustard yellow. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
let's make it, I'll show you what it looks like. I said,
Mm-hmm.
let's make it just a bit more feminine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This was a dark brown. I said,
Mm-hmm.
let's kind of lighten up this floor.
Yeah.
Just things like that. We worked on the back blurb,
Yeah.
her
Yeah. Yeah.
author
Yeah.
bio, just things like that. Even just the font of this, just to make it look a bit more handwritten, like how a
Yeah.
child would write. Just little details.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I pass contacts to her whenever I can. She's
Mm-hmm.
had quite a few podcasts, thanks
Mm-hmm.
to people that I've introduced to do, just little things like that. So that's been just a pleasure to help her along her journey, and she seems extremely grateful, and I'm grateful to know her. And mm,
Yeah, yeah, that sounds like again, that's one of those books that immediately a lot of moms, the market is wide open for something like that. I don't know what the content of the book is about. But again, I think again, the subtitle is From Burnout to Empowerment. Just a
yes,
lot of moms can resonate with that. And I can only imagine how much more challenging it is these days, raising a child. There's so many other things that are coming at them, so many other distractions that you as a parent have to serve as a counterbalance for. So,
yes.
it's awesome. Now, one of the questions that I hadn't thought of before, I created, my outline of things to discuss with you was, now that you have a business, Alaya Books, and you have business experience, and I'm even actually as a girl band, you were actually managing that business. It was a different type of business. Tell me what your thoughts are about, you know, being in banking and being in the business world, negotiating big deals or being part of big deals. Of course, having the girl band and what that involved in terms of making sure that you all received what you were, supposed to be paid. And then also having Alaya Books as now your business that's centered around publishing. That's three different types of business worlds.
Yes.
Tell me what your thoughts are about Alaya Books and how your previous experience is helping you now, and any of the challenges that you're experiencing as a business owner in this context.
Mm. Yeah, I think yeah, complex question.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah, I think being a business person involves a lot of empathy.
mm-hmm.
And so that's the common tie
Yeah.
between the three. But
Mm-hmm,
instead of understanding, because in America, in New York, in the bank,
Mhm.
I had to understand the company's needs because I was providing alternative long-term financing. It's like,
Mhm.
how can we fix this for you better
Mhm.
than another bank? And you're
Mhm.
sort of selling to them, but you're creating an offer that is
Mhm.
attractive to them. So I I like to start, with a conversation with the person, and I usually ask for a video call so I can see them
Mhm.
because I want to feel and understand their needs,
Yeah.
and I want to make their dreams come
Mhm.
true,
Mhm.
and I want to also understand their ability time-wise, payment-wise, just
Mhm.
how we can make everything work. Some customers pay up front, some need a payment plan, some books
Mhm.
go slower just so the person has more time because they've got loads of other commitments.
Mhm.
Everything it has to be very individual. And I
Mhm.
found that with publishing too, because all of the publishers that I was showing books to, they all have
Mhm.
different needs, obviously,
Yeah.
because every
Yeah.
business, a
Yes.
publishing house is a business. They all
Yes.
have different specializations, different needs. So it was really understanding them and building that relationship over the years. And
Mhm.
then I was just the one they wanted to see. It was just so good. It was like before the book fair, I wasn't contacting them. They were like, "Oh, it's time to set up our meeting. Should we just do the same time as last year?" I'm like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Tuesday, 3 o'clock. Perfect."
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that was it, you know? It was
Mhm.
just so fantastic. And I've had some clients through Alaya Books that have
Mhm.
been with me for years now, since inception.
Mhm.
And it's just such a wonderful feeling. And that's what I love, to nurture long-term relationships and just seeing people really
Yeah.
grow and achieve what they want to achieve.
So, how long has Alaya Books been? How long have you had that business?
Yeah, not that long,
Mhm.
because I finished maternity leave and then
Mhm.
took the plunge. I'd say two, yeah, probably just 2 years, 2.5 years.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, not very long. Yeah, but
Okay.
I had a few clients when I hit the ground running, and they're
Mhm.
still there, which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
So
Yeah.
your daughter is pretty young. If I'm,
She's 24.
doing the math. How old is she?
Oh, she's 4.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fast. Oh my. Yeah. So you're
I started up my business,
uh-huh.
yeah, the cusp of 50, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another age has no limit.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I love
And I
that. I love that.
decided to set it up in Spain, but I do everything in English.
Mm.
Location has no limit.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So, I mean, it is interesting. You don't, it's a combination of both traditional routes and then, little detours into things that you either enjoy or are just a good, mix of your talents and skills. Now, you've lived in several capital cities that a lot of people would love to just visit. So why did you choose Barcelona? Or did Barcelona choose you?
Yeah, yeah. They do say Barcelona captures you, and it hasn't
Yeah.
set me free. So yeah, it's coming up to 20 years,
Mhm.
19 years here now.
Mhm.
I was really struck by just the beauty, and
Mhm.
having lived in other cities, particularly New York, it was
Mhm.
just so much fun because it was just endless amount of things to do. But
Mhm.
in New York, I miss the beach, and we had to go to the Hamptons to go to the beach, and I just
Mhm.
thought I want to be on the Mediterranean
Yeah.
in Europe with a great
Yeah.
language that I have interest in learning. Spanish, my God,
Yeah.
fantastic, so practical and opens
Yeah.
up the whole world for travel as well in Spanish.
Yeah.
And so Madrid, because I'd been in Milan, Madrid was not on the list at all. I was like, I need the coast. I
Yeah.
wanted a bit more bohemian. I was ready for that. I think
Yeah.
Milan after New York was a good sort of stepping stone, a
Urbane.
bit
Yeah. Sort
more
of like, yeah.
corporate.
Yeah.
But here it was like, whoa, what have I done? But it
Yeah.
was great. And
Yeah.
sometimes I miss that sort of New York, everybody's so hungry for money and this and that. Barcelona doesn't have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, it'll get there. And at the same time, I don't think that's what I'm about at the moment. I'm
Yeah.
about family now, creativity,
Yeah.
creating beautiful things. It's different stages in life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And Barcelona sounds like the perfect, crucible for that. So, as I shared before, for those of you who may not know, so I own a business called Ready, Set, Go Consult. It's my second business, and the one that I am looking forward to spending some more time on. But I've actually written about how, as a consultant, I was able to run the business when I was in Milan, I'm sorry, Barcelona, and just my experience there. And I was actually telling a friend that I really wouldn't mind going back and spending a month in Spain in different parts of the country. But Barcelona, the time I was there, I really loved it. There's just so much beauty around you in terms of architecture. I may not be an architectural like student of any kind, but just the beauty of the buildings.
it's amazing. And
It's
it's
amazing.
different too. It's like you see
Yes,
one and then you see something, it's like, where did that come from? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And just even the layout of the city. And
Mm.
I just enjoyed it. Interestingly, I'm a person that's really into urban planning. The mass transit system was really efficient and beautiful in and of itself. So,
You don't need
uh,
a car if you live in the
yeah,
city.
yeah,
I would do bicycle or walking. So I always
yeah,
live really center.
yeah.
But even if you live out, just metro, this and that, but
Yeah, yeah, it's a
really,
fantastic city. I highly recommend anyone who's interested in checking out Spain. If that's the vibe you're looking for, definitely, spend some time in Barcelona. But yeah, so thanks again for telling us why Barcelona chose you. And you wrote that, and you've said several times during our conversation, no limit is one of your mantras. So outside of the absence of limitations on where you've lived, where you've run your business, your two careers and your days in the girl band, how else, give us another example of how you embody a no limit life.
um, well, when age is no limit, I
Yeah.
started doing yoga on
Yeah.
a regular basis when
Mhm.
I was 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just started doing it 3 times a week. And
Hmm.
I haven't really wavered from that. So it's been over 10 years now.
Hmm.
And for me, that's a savior,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolute savior. I don't
Hmm.
do the really high intense classes anymore.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
prefer, and I sort of seek a bit more meditation in
Hmm.
the class.
Yeah.
So I've changed, the kind of
Hmm.
teachers or whatever, but oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yoga for me is amazing. And some people might think, oh, I'm 40, maybe it's not. It's like,
No, that's a
one
perfect
woman
time
in my
actually.
class, I swear she's 71. She's
Yeah.
just picked up yoga this year. The changes in her body is mind-blowing. She's
Yeah.
like a year old now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I absolutely agree. And 40, I think, is actually, I think any time is a perfect time, but
Mm.
40 is when typically, unlike Natalia, who has a 4-year-old, typically though,
Yeah.
there are just so many changes in your life that allow you to really focus on some of the things that you can benefit from doing yoga. So I've been doing yoga on and off for I actually first started it when my son was first born, and my son is 30 years old. And it's been on and off. I really, really want to make it like a daily part of my life. So I can definitely understand and appreciate that. What flow do you typically practice? Which
Well, I
kind of yoga?
do at the moment hatha.
Hatha.
But
Mm-hmm.
I lived in a town. I've just
Mm-hmm.
been in this town for a couple of years. I lived in a town for 8 years. They were into Kundalini yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that in itself was so incredible because it's
Mm-hmm.
an extremely spiritual practice. And it was at the time in my life
Mm-hmm.
where I really needed a lot of mental strength, particularly for this whole fertility process
Mm-hmm.
I was going through and
Mm-hmm.
trying to believe that my body was capable of
Mm-hmm.
pregnancy at my age. And oh, the Kundalini yoga, it was incredible. And it was a small town just
Mm-hmm.
north of Barcelona where I was living, gorgeous place, just 15 minutes drive from the city. But can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine 10,000 people,
Yeah.
3 yoga teachers, all of them, nothing other than Kundalini. And I thought,
Oh,
if that's not
wow.
a message that I should be
Yeah.
doing Kundalini yoga,
Yes.
I don't know what
Yes.
is. So I specialized in Kundalini for ages. And
Mm-hmm.
probably I wouldn't mind doing a
Mm-hmm.
yoga instructor
Yeah.
course one
Yeah.
day. And
Yeah.
I'll probably do Kundalini because
Yeah. I'm
it just has that such strong spiritual side to it.
Yeah.
Mm,
That's
yeah,
interesting. That's interesting.
yeah.
Because that's actually crossed my mind as well. Guys, it probably sounds like I'm sort of like, batting off of a lot of the things that Natalia says. And that's part of the reason why I was so interested in getting to know her, because, and I'm sure you all are getting to know her through this conversation. But yeah, I mean, I like that she says, well, probably one day I'll do this. And then, it sounds like she typically does it. And because she has a no limit approach to life, it's very likely that it'll happen. And I just think it's a great example for all of us, especially those of us that are in our late 40s and 50s and 60s, that you can, wonder about something, decide maybe to pursue it and then make it happen. And I think that Natalia is an excellent example of that. So you've redesigned your life, it sounds like at least 3 times, that I'm aware of. What's your next big adventure?
The next adventure, at the moment, I'm enjoying this motherhood phase. It's something
Mm-hmm.
I wanted for so long, and
Mm-hmm.
it finally came, and it did feel like divine timing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just really in the mode, and I'm loving all these beautiful books that I'm creating. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
very settled at the moment. I've always been like traveling here and there and a little bit sometimes bordering workaholic. But
Mm-hmm.
now I'm just very much in the family zone,
Yeah.
and beautiful books. I'm actually doing a lot of children's books because they're quite, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
easy to put together, and that's what I'm into with my child, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's where I'm at the moment. But then, I don't know what's going to happen as soon as Katu's a little bit older. Obviously,
Yeah.
the world is going to start expanding again.
Yeah.
I've always dreamed one day helping children in need.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
takes me to Africa or South
Mm-hmm.
America. I'll probably end up in the third world at one stage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm just preparing myself for it. I'm not there yet. I've got a lot of books to write. The book that I told you I'm writing about the girl band is actually going to be a trilogy. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't call it like decades. So sort of
Mm-hmm.
it's the 30s, it's the 40s, it's the 50s, and
Mm-hmm.
all of these changes we go through with
Yeah.
priorities in life and how we have to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, but maybe once they're all done, I'll throw myself into this love that I would have of helping children, but through dance, through
Mm-hmm.
books, through all
Yeah.
the things that I've experienced in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
bringing that knowledge and even just the ability to dream to
Mm-hmm.
children who are not lucky and they don't
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
enough food, and just trying to help a community basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds fantastic. So, this question, it's almost as if you've already defined that for us, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I ask every guest, what does an age has no limit life look like to you?
Um, I think it is about constant renovation.
Mm,
Um, we do that now. I'm just realizing with my mom, who's just
mm-hmm.
been completely age has no limit,
Mm-hmm.
but she's 86 now. And
Mm-hmm.
for the first
Wow.
time, she's realizing her limits.
Yeah.
She doesn't jump on a plane by herself anymore. She'd prefer to be accompanied by
Yeah.
me or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think it's just about there are certain limits at every stage. Like me with yoga, now I'm very happy into the hatha. I'm not doing the really high-powered yoga anymore, but I just feel that's what my body's calling. So we have to listen to ourselves, don't we?
Yeah.
Adapt and
Yeah.
then move forward, but never lose sight of what we want to achieve.
Yeah.
Because if we lose sight, then we're just sort of swimming nowhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we want to have direction. And then I think we feel self-fulfilled, and yes.
Mm. Well, it's interesting. This other question I typically ask all of our guests, but you've already shared a few of them. So maybe there's some others that we can dig out. So, what's one thing you want to accomplish, but you haven't yet? So, we've already heard about, your desire to maybe work with youth in an African country, and there are 54 of them. So, you're gonna have certainly, a time trying to pick one. In South America or another developing country. You also talked about, learning Brazilian Portuguese and perhaps being getting a yoga instructor certification, which is a great way to accelerate one's practice, and which is one of the reasons I've even considered it. Is there
Yeah.
something else?
Well, with this desire that I have for the Brazilian Portuguese, I do wonder whether maybe I'll go to
Mhm,
Brazil for a while, and then that in
mhm,
itself, that experience will probably open doors, and I'll see where
mhm.
that goes.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
know. I
yeah.
love Spain, and I never think about leaving here. I've been here so long,
Hmm.
but it could be a really interesting idea to think
Hmm.
about.
Yeah.
And I invite helpers to come into the house so that
Hmm.
my daughter has somebody, like now she is playing with a Brazilian helper who's
Hmm.
absolutely lovely.
Hmm.
And I invite helpers from all over the world. It's
Hmm.
through a website called
Hmm.
helpx.net. So it's
Hmm.
like a language exchange, and you host the
Hmm.
young person there. They're usually between 20 and
Hmm.
30 or 40, depending.
Hmm.
And I must say, like, my daughter just is so in love with the Brazilian helpers that we've had. She
Yeah.
loves the different cultures, but
Hmm.
there's definitely something there. So it gets me thinking sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe.
Brazil is, it sounds like Brazil is definitely in the running, something that I'm sure it sounds like you're going to actually experience.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to tell the audience where they can learn more about you. Tell us your website again, your Instagram, and anything that's coming up that you want to make sure that they're aware about. Um, or aware of, and also, maybe, again, any invitation to explore what it's like to work with you as their author coach or in some other support as they try to publish their own books.
Yes. So my website is alayabooks.com.
Hmm.
Find quite a bit of information on there. I also interview some authors. You'll see the page called Insights.
Hmm.
So that's a nice way to get a feeling for some of the books that I've been involved with.
Hmm.
I'm fairly new to Instagram,
Hmm.
um, but I do have two Instagrams. It's
Hmm.
Alaya Books,
Hmm.
and then I have Alaya Books for Children. So
Hmm.
I thought that would be nice to separate them, because I have a lot of adult titles, a lot of children's titles.
Hmm.
And then I'm quite active on Facebook, Natalia
Hmm.
Hooker,
Hmm.
LinkedIn, Natalia
Hmm.
Hooker.
Hmm.
And to get a real feel, I think for me as a writing coach, it
Hmm.
would be the Instagram, because that's a good place where you can see a lot of the posts that I put on social media. So there's
Hmm.
some inspiring quotes,
Hmm.
for authors, but also my words,
Hmm.
you know, don't hold back. Your
Yeah.
work, your story is worth sharing. These kind of things that I just feel are so close to home, and you'll
Hmm.
see a lot of them up there. So if you're ever sort of doubting that you should get your book done, I strongly believe that you shouldn't. And
Hmm.
there's always a way. There's always a budget. There's always a capacity. You can even just be guided to do everything yourself
Hmm.
if that's your means and capabilities.
Hmm.
But I just feel it's an incredible time now to get books out into the world, and we have to share stories
Yeah.
to inspire each other,
Yeah.
and through one little story you can change lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what we're here to do, to share.
Yeah. So I think that, I always try to link ways that, each guest has been, an epitome or an example of a no limit life. And I have to say, Natalia, you're definitely one of the guests that really embody that, the approach, right? So you have lived in different parts of the world, you've spoken different languages, you've had a number of careers, you're considering other careers. Your mom, I believe you said at 47 or 48, and you have a 4-year-old that you're raising, and so I think that you have been a wonderful example of our no limit life and the no limit tribe that I am trying to develop across our listenership. So again, I want to thank you for your time. For those of you who want to learn more about Natalia, again, go to alayabooks.com. Natalia, thank you for being an excellent example that age has no limit.